Hello, young people. Here we are at the Yakima River. Normally, I like to take you guys on field trips, and you would be here at the Yakima River with me. But we're making the best of it. So we're at a place called Ringer Loop, and this is just a spot just outside of Ellensburg, just south of Ellensburg on the Yakima River. People like to bring their dogs here. And this is going to be our first virtual field trip where we are going to learn to start thinking like a geologist. Start looking at our world the way a geologist would look at our world. Looking at the kind of evidence that a geologist would look at, and start drawing some fairly basic but important interpretations and conclusions like a geologist would. So we're walking down the path here. We'll see if anybody's down here, if we've got the place to ourselves. And here we are, getting down to the river. We'll step down here. So this is it. This is the Yakima River. It's late in the year, so the water level is really low. Nice reflection of the clouds over across there. You can see the hills. That is Monastash Ridge, and it burned just a couple of weeks ago. It's all black. The fire came all the way over down the hill, and I think it made it almost all the way to the river. Looking around, looking downstream now, we're looking south and upstream. You can see the water's really low. It's not moving very fast because of the time of year. If we came down here in the springtime, you can see the riverbank here. You can see the level where the path comes in over there, and down here you can see that sort of cutaway edge. The river gets all the way up to there, so I would say the water level is a good 2 feet lower, maybe 3 feet lower than it is in the spring. So we're here to make some observations like a geologist would make. And the first thing that we might notice for geologists, what are we going to look at? We're going to look at the water. Now we're going to look at the rocks. So let's get down here and look at these rocks. As a geologist, my interpretation when I see these rocks, the first thing I'm going to notice is that they're all pretty round. I mean, like this one here, it's got that's kind of like a little corner there, but there's no sharp edges on these rocks. Nice and rounded. That's a good skipping stone right there. It's flat, but it's rounded. All these rocks are pretty well rounded. And the next thing we're going to notice as a geologist is they all look to be pretty much the same size. I mean, we've got a few bigger ones like this, and over here some smaller ones but they all look to be close to the same size. So there's a couple basic observations that we might make. The next question a geologist is going to ask himself, or herself, themself, is what kind of rocks are these? And we haven't learned too much about different types of rocks, but we've probably learned we don't actually need to know that much about different types of rocks to at least decide if they're all the same or not. We've got good light today, good sunshine, so we can get a good look at our minerals inside these rocks. We're gonna have to break them open to see what they are. On the outside, they're all just these round gray Easter egg looking things, and they all look pretty similar. But I brought my rock hammer, and I'm still getting the hang of these controls on this filming doodad here. So here's one. Here's a rock. Let's break it open and see if we can figure out what's inside of it. Not sure how well that's focusing on what we want to focus on here on the inside of the rock. I see a light colored rock, and I see some sparkly minerals. I'm not sure if that's coming through in the video or not, but I see some sparkly minerals. It's mostly light colored. Let's try another one. Let's try something else. How about this one right here? Doesn't want to break them. Now we'll let that one go. How about this one? Okay. I see a fairly dark colored rock. Still got lots of sparkly minerals in there. Isn't that amazing how the outside of it's just this dull gray, and then we break it open and we see all of these dark sparkly minerals? Geologists call that a fresh surface. We'd call this a weathered surface. It's been exposed to the elements. It's all dirty, smooth. We break it open to see a nice fresh surface. Sorry, it won't focus on this rock, but dark, sparkly. Let's try a third one. That one's dark too. That one's really fine-grained, but it's still got some sparkles in it. Hopefully you can see that. How about this one? There's another light colored one. So, we don't know too much about different types of rocks yet, but we know enough to say that these are not all the same kind of rock. We definitely have some dark rocks. We have some light rocks. Here's another dark one. And they all have these randomly organized sparkly minerals in them. And what that tells me is these are mostly igneous rocks, randomly oriented minerals that are sparkly. That tells us we're looking at igneous rocks. So what do we have so far? We've got the shape of the rocks. We've got the size of the rocks. We've got the composition. We know that we've got igneous rocks, and we know that they're not all the same type. And as a geologist, what that tells me is that these rocks traveled to get here. These are not native to the Yakima River. Because the further a rock travels, the more round it gets. We talked about that in lecture a couple days ago. And we've got a pretty obvious candidate for how those rocks got here in the Yakima River. Pretty well sorted, all pretty much the same size. Okay, so now let's go over here. Walking downstream just a little bit. And we're learning to think like a geologist. This is interesting right here. So what I see is down here, I see a bunch of well-sorted, well-rounded, mixed types of rocks. Yet right here, we have a big pile of boulders. And when I look at these boulders, I don't see well-rounded rocks. I see angular rocks. Look at that right there. It's angles on these rocks. Look at this one here. That's not round. And we can see this pile of boulders back in under the tree there. I can see a bunch of angular stuff. So that's already got our geologist brains wondering what's going on here. Well, geologist is going to want to know what these rocks are made of too. What kind of rocks are we looking at? Are they all the same type? Are they different? Let's try to break a piece off here. Look at it. Nice fresh surface. There we go. We've got a fresh surface. Getting attacked by an insect here, but that's okay. Got a fresh surface right in here. That is dark. It is fine-grained. Little sparkly minerals. That is a big old boulder of basalt. Well, let's look at some other ones. Let's come over here. Maybe we can check out this one. Definitely spraying little pieces of rocks into my eyes. How about this one down here by my foot? Well, there's a nice fresh surface. Let me see if we can even get over to see it. This is challenging. I'm holding this video thing with one hand, so I would just step in the water, but the water's so it's got so much. Here we go. There's that chunk I just broke off. It's dark in there, fine-grained. It's more basalt. Volcanic rock. Another big boulder of basalt. Here, what I'm standing on is another big boulder of basalt. This one over here is another big boulder of basalt. So we're thinking like geologists. Again, over here, well-rounded, well-sorted mixture of rock types. Over here, angular, very large, not in any way related to the size of the rest of these rocks, and it's all the same rock type. So, thinking like a geologist, I'm going to say these rocks, these big boulders, these couldn't have gotten here by the river. The river couldn't have brought them here because they don't display any of the patterns that we would expect from rocks that had been transported by a river. Also, when we think about how large those rocks are and how much they must weigh, you'd need an awful lot of water moving really, really fast to move rocks that big. So those rocks right there got here some other way. Our next stop, we're gonna get in the truck and we're gonna drive down the river a little further. We're gonna move on to a second stop called Beavertail Bend. So that's it here from Ringer Loop. Hello again. Here we are a little bit further downstream along the Yakima River. See my truck in the background. Had to wait for a little while for a train to go past. It was pretty noisy. That's across the street and up the hill. You can see behind me, it's really a beautiful place. Really a beautiful place. There's the river behind me. And what we're here to look at, of course, is the rocks. We're right alongside the Yakima River. You can see there's a lot more water here. When we were back at Ringer Loop, that was a little branch of the Yakima River. Here, the Yakima River, all the rocks, or all the water is flowing all in one channel, so we've got a lot more water. So let's see what we've got. You can wander around here. We're standing on a pretty big pile of rocks. Kind of just keeps going and going. It's a really big pile of rocks. We're going to ask ourselves kind of the same set of questions that we asked ourselves back at Ringer Loop. First, let's look at the shape of these rocks. The first thing that I'm going to notice as a geologist, and maybe you're one step ahead of me, these are angular rocks. Angular, sharp edges. Sharp edges. Got lots of sharp edges. Then we'll ask ourselves the same question: are they well sorted or are they poorly sorted? So we got to think about the size. There's a big one. Big one over there. What do you guys think? Are we looking at well-sorted or poorly sorted rocks? As a geologist, I'm going to say poorly sorted. We've got all kinds of sizes, from really big boulders down to little tiny rocks. Got a pretty big range in sizes. Look at this. Here's some tiny ones right next to a giant one. And then the next thing we're going to ask ourselves is, what kind of rocks are these? All the same kind? Different? Got my rock hammer. Find ourselves some rocks to break. So down here by the closer to the river, we've even got some sand down there. That sand, I don't believe, is related to these rocks. See the grasshopper on that big flat one right there? Well, let's grab some rocks and break them open and see what we got. This one looks like pretty pale colored, doesn't it? It looks kind of light colored. Let's grab our rock hammer and see what we find. It ran away. How about this one? There we go. Whoa! Look at how dark that is on the inside. Weathered surface, fresh surface. We always want to look at our fresh surface. Dark, little sparkles. Here's another one. I don't even know if that's the one I broke. Here's another one. Weathered surface. There's a fresh surface. It's dark on the inside and sparkly. Here's another one. Weathered surface, looks kind of reddish brown. Right there on the inside though, look at that. Dark, bluish black, little tiny sparkly minerals. I don't know if you can see the little tiny sparkly minerals on the video or not, but I promise you they're there. What about these giant ones? What about the big ones? The light's not very good, but it's dark. These rocks are all the same kind. These are all basalt. So, thinking like a geologist, are we thinking the river brought these rocks here? I mean, we're right next to the river, so it might seem like the river probably put these here, but it did not. And our evidence for that, we don't want to just make a claim. We need to have some evidence to back it up. Our evidence that the river did not put these rocks here, we just went over it. They're all the same kind of rocks. And they're angular, and they're poorly sorted. We know that rivers, when they deposit rocks, they're really good at sorting them. Not so much here, not very well sorted. They're angular, it means they haven't traveled very far. So, we've got a couple of really compelling pieces of evidence that the river didn't put these rocks here. So what did? It's a big boulder right there. Take another look around at the size of this pile. Across the river, big old pile of rocks. Now we're gonna look across the road, go up a little bit, and directly uphill from us, you can see a little gully, little ravine. And that's actually where all of these rocks came from. These rocks are the product of a large landslide. It took place in 1998. And it came down the hill, down that ravine, right up there. It blocked the road, and it nearly blocked the river. Nearly blocked the river. Now we want to go down, not up. I'm getting the hang of this thing, I swear. I don't know why it's such poor focus. Come on now. There we go. So anyways, that's it here from Beavertail Bend, using a little bit of geologic evidence in the Yakima River Canyon to make some observations and draw some conclusions. And that will conclude our first virtual field trip. See you guys back in the classroom.